Hello, my name is David Massey, and I'll just be doing this quick video on my career project. My big goal is to one day become a video game designer. It's something I've had a passion for almost all my life. It just took a few years and a few missteps to finally realize that. I am a big gamer myself, and I do have a pretty big imagination. At least, that's what I tell myself. So why not mix the two together and do something that I could potentially love for the rest of my life? So now that we've gotten through the obligatory introductions and my delusions of grandeur, let's get started. According to Game Informer, a notable video game magazine, the industry is currently in the forefront of the entertainment industry, even surpassing the film industry. That, however, was not always the case, and it took many years and many missteps to get there. So we will go all the way back to the 1950 Canadian National Exhibition, where Dr. Joseph Cates unveiled what is considered the first video game machine, called Bertie the Brain. Bertie was a 4-foot-tall machine that allowed the attendees to play tic-tac-toe against an artificial intelligence, something no one had ever been able to do until that time. And according to the Ottawa Citizen, a newspaper for the city, people were lined up for hours to play against the AI. Eventually, they had to shut down the exhibition, much to the attendees' chagrin. Afterwards, Bertie was dismantled by Dr. Cates as he was busy with other projects, and Bertie was quickly forgotten and faded into obscurity as Cates considered it nothing more than a simple novelty, not the breakthrough that it truly was. Since that moment, people realized this is an untapped market that maybe they could get into. There was something to be done here, and money to be made. Soon after video game machines were in development, nothing was really released to the public until 1972, when Atari released Pong. Pong, we all know it. You hear it, you know exactly how to play it, you know what it looks like. It is considered one of the greatest video games ever made, just because of how big it became, and it was released to a lot of critical acclaim. Pong was actually initially developed as a training exercise for certain companies, say construction and whatnot, but Alan Alcorn, the lead designer, thought they could do something a little bit more than just have it as a training exercise. And was he right? Once it was released, many other companies tried to capture the success of Pong. Some of them did succeed, some of them did not. However, that same year of 1972, the very first video game console was released, called the Magnavox Odyssey. It didn't really sell well because people didn't see a point in having a video game console in their house when they could just go to the arcade and play Pong. So it only sold about 100,000 units, which even back then wasn't considered a lot, especially for what it took to make it and the price. So they didn't break even, so they had to release a downgraded console a year or two later. But Atari's Pong still dominated throughout the years, until Atari released their own at-home video game console, simply the Atari. Throughout the years, video games began to rise in popularity. Arcades were springing up all over the place. People were, in fact, rushing out to buy video game consoles for their homes so they could continue playing in their own living rooms. The 90s is when the huge surge happened, when Nintendo became big, released the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo 64, and the very first handheld video game console, the Game Boy. Now, they were the kings of the market, so to speak, until December 3rd, 1994, when Sony released the PlayStation. The PlayStation once again revolutionized the video game industry because instead of using cartridges, it used discs, which were able to hold more storage space, and they produced better looking graphics back in the day. Let's see. And then around the 2000s is when the fifth video game generation was released. That included the Sega Dreamcast, the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the GameCube. Something new this generation added was online play. All you have to do is hook an Ethernet cable into your system, and boom, just put a disc in and you can play with any friend across the country. And this has been a staple with consoles and the industry ever since. Now, after hearing a brief history about the industry, we're now going to talk about why it's big to me. As corny as it sounds, video games and the industry do hold a dear, special place in my heart. Growing up, I was a military brat, so needless to say, we moved around a lot in Colorado, Germany, California, Missouri, and those were just the big moves. We moved to other towns in those states and country, per se. So pretty much as a kid, every few years I would make a new batch of friends. would lose the old one. So one thing I would use to my advantage to make friends were my video games. I had a pretty decent collection. I had the PlayStation, Nintendo 64, all that. So I could just invite people over, play it, and so I could make friends that way. And so yeah, it was a big part of my childhood. We would play like GoldenEye 64, Perfect Dark, Mario Party 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., and so on and so forth. And then also with the introduction of online play, that also allowed me to play with some of the friends I kept in contact with, who had the same systems and games, and so we could just pop them into the disc tray, and you know, it was really nice. I liked it. Brings back some good memories right now. Now, the big things I like about the gaming industry is the stories that they can tell. Unlike Hollywood movies, games are allowed to have more imagination and creative ideas put into them, and they aren't restricted by runtimes or studio interference. People expect a game to blow them away with amazing stories, innovative ideas, and great mechanics. To me, a video game is a mix between like reading a book and watching a movie. You're watching the story play out on the screen, characters reacting to situations, and dialogue to move the story, but the difference is you actually can have a say in what happens, where the story goes, and it's right at the tip of your fingertips. Also, as I stated above, games can bring people together and create more interactivity than sitting around idly watching a movie or staring at your smartphones. It encourages teamwork, it encourages interactivity, it encourages talking to each other, and winning the game. So I think it brings people closer together than, again, just watching a movie or sitting staring at a smartphone. Also, a smaller thing I like about video games is they are a good way of letting off steam. Just like some people go to the gym to work out, some people clean. I like to play video games to kind of let out some stress, and it does work, and I'll probably continue doing that in the future. Now, something we've been waiting for. Why I want to be a video game designer, the perks of it. First off, I'll go ahead and tell you kind of what a game designer is. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary describes a video game designer as an important part of a comprehensive team of designers and developers that coordinate the complex task of creating a new video game. Game designers have duties like designing characters, levels, puzzles, and animation. They also may write code using various computer programming languages. Essentially, though, with a designer, you have more say in the project than a developer. A designer, as stated, you design everything. You put your creative ideas into the game, whereas the developer just pretty much puts in what you tell them to. And that's what I like about it. Again, I'm a very creative individual. I have a very vivid imagination, so I feel that it would be a job that would really put that to good use. Let's see. It also looks, being a video game designer, essentially what you do is you're in charge of a team, either for the whole game or just a part of the game, but the fact of the matter is you do have, again, a say, but it is also a good resume builder because that looks good, that you are able to lead this team and create this sometimes multi-million-dollar project with nothing more than just your imagination and creativity. And then another good aspect of a game designer is the pay. This one is just a bonus, it's not the main feature, but according to Glassdoor.com, the average pay for a game designer is about $65,000 a year, which, if it was up to me, I would say is not bad whatsoever. Okay, now moving on, we're going to talk about some of the companies I would be looking at to work at. The first one would be the company of BioWare. They are a notable RPG developing studio who have made some pretty big hits like the Mass Effect series, a sci-fi game that takes place throughout the Milky Way galaxy to defend it from an incoming threat, the Dragon Age series, a game that takes place in a fantasy world with mages, dragons, and knights that as you try to make a name and survive in this harsh world. And then Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic series, a game that takes place 4,000 years before the initial movies made by George Lucas. They're a subsidiary of Electronic Arts, or EA for short, which is a big name in the gaming industry. They have their fingers in a lot of different pots, so they do have adequate funding for their projects, and they have big name developer support. BioWare has 3 locations in Montreal, Edmonton in Canada, and also in Austin, Texas. Each location focuses on a different game at a time, so there are different opportunities to move to a different location and work on new things, so it's essentially always going to be a busy atmosphere and never slow. The other studio I would be looking at would be Naughty Dog. They are responsible for some great video game classics like the Crash Bandicoot series and the Jak and Daxter series, which just even saying those names people usually know what you're talking about. They also have an acclaimed series called Uncharted, which follows the adventures of Nathan Drake as he uncovers ancient mysteries in far-off places. It's a mix between Tomb Raider and James Bond. They're very fun games. They've won many awards. And they also made a very heavily thematic game called The Last of Us, which depicts the fall of society through the eyes of an older man named Joel and a younger girl named Ellie, who he has to escort to a safe location. They do only have one studio, unlike BioWare, which has 3, but their track record for making award-winning games makes them a studio to contend with. They are based in Santa Monica, and they are a subsidiary of Sony Entertainment of America. So their video games are PlayStation exclusive, but their location puts them in a prime area for the entertainment industry. And they do also work with a lot of other companies, so they have a lot of room to grow, and they have a little bit more job security than BioWare does. But much like BioWare, they are also a good resume-building company, and they're a good company to break out in. So, with all that said and done, I feel I've given you enough information as to why I'd love to work in this industry, and gave you a history lesson at the same time, albeit a little brief. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you know me a little better and you can understand why I would want to go into this career field. Thank you.